I think I didn't do anything wrong, just followed my heart and wanted to be happy. But this morning, I opened the door to a courier with divorce papers, my husband's signature already there, along with a list of everything he wants from our home. All because of one decision I still don't regret. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. My name is Eustacia Marrow, and I'm 34 years old. I work as an HR assistant at Morrison & Associates. Nothing glamorous, but it pays the bills. Or it used to anyway. My husband Tom is 36, works in IT consulting, and honestly, he's always been the practical one between us. Maybe that's where things went wrong. We have 2 children together, Lily, who's 8, and Jamie, who's 5. They're good kids, but being a mother wasn't supposed to be my entire identity. I had dreams once, ambitions that went beyond packing school lunches and attending parent-teacher conferences. The first time Callum Jax smiled at me across the office break room, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years. Excitement. Real, genuine excitement that made my stomach flutter and my cheeks warm. He was 31, tall with dark hair, and these incredible green eyes that seemed to see right through me. "You look like you could use better coffee," he said that Tuesday morning, gesturing to my sad paper cup filled with the office's terrible brew. "I could use better everything," I replied without thinking, then immediately felt embarrassed by how desperate that sounded. Callum laughed, not mockingly, but with genuine warmth. "I know a place. Maybe I could show you sometime?" That was 3 months ago. 3 months of stolen glances, innocent coffee dates that gradually became less innocent, and text messages that I deleted as soon as I read them. I wasn't doing anything wrong. Not really. We were just friends. Close friends. Tom started noticing the changes first. I was staying later at work, taking more time with my appearance in the morning, and I'll admit, I was less interested in our usual evening routine of dinner, homework help, and mindless television. "You seem different lately," Tom said one evening as we were cleaning up after dinner. Lily and Jamie were in the living room, arguing over what to watch on Netflix. "Different how?" I asked, though I kept my back to him while loading the dishwasher. "I don't know. Distant, I guess. Like your mind is somewhere else." I turned around, forcing what I hoped was a reassuring smile. "I'm just tired, Tom. Work's been stressful. Maybe we should plan a weekend away. Just the 2 of us. My parents could watch the kids." The suggestion should have made me happy. A year ago, it would have. But now, the thought of being alone with Tom for an entire weekend felt suffocating. "I can't take time off right now. We're in the middle of a big project." That wasn't entirely true. There was always work to be done, but nothing that couldn't wait. The real reason was that Callum and I had plans to meet for coffee on Saturday afternoon. He'd been hinting about wanting to spend more time together, and I was curious to see where things might lead. "What project?" Tom asked, and there was something in his tone that made me look at him more carefully. His brown eyes were studying my face with an intensity that made me uncomfortable. "Just HR stuff. You wouldn't find it interesting. Try me." I felt a flash of irritation. This was exactly the problem with our marriage. Tom's constant need to know every detail, to analyze and question everything. Couldn't he just accept that I was an adult capable of managing my own responsibilities? "It's complicated, Tom. Can we just drop it?" He was quiet for a moment, then nodded. "Sure. Sorry for asking." The guilt I felt at his resigned tone was quickly pushed aside when my phone buzzed with a text from Callum. "Can't wait to see you tomorrow. I have something special planned." I deleted the message and went to help the kids get ready for bed, but my mind was already on tomorrow's meeting. Callum had been increasingly flirtatious lately, and part of me, a part I wasn't ready to examine too closely, was excited to see what he had in mind. Later that night, as Tom and I were getting ready for bed, he tried to initiate intimacy. His hands were gentle on my shoulders as he kissed my neck. But all I could think about was how different it felt from the electric anticipation I felt when Callum looked at me. "I'm really tired," I said, pulling away. "Maybe tomorrow?" Tom's face fell slightly, but he nodded. "Of course. Get some sleep." As I lay in bed listening to Tom's steady breathing beside me, I felt my phone buzz under my pillow. Another text from Callum. "Sweet dreams. Beautiful." I should have felt guilty. I should have been horrified at myself for the warm feeling that spread through my chest. Instead, I found myself smiling in the darkness and wondering what tomorrow would bring. The next morning, I took extra care getting ready. I chose a dress that Tom had complimented me on before, did my makeup more carefully than usual, and even wore the perfume my sister Marnie had given me for my birthday. "You look nice," Tom said as I grabbed my purse and keys. "Special day at work?" "Just felt like making an effort," I replied, avoiding his eyes. At the office, the morning dragged by. I found myself checking the clock constantly, counting down the hours until I could meet Callum. When lunchtime finally arrived, I told my supervisor I was running errands and left the building with my heart racing. Callum was waiting for me at the cafe we'd agreed on, and when he saw me, his face lit up in a way that made me feel beautiful and desired in a way I hadn't in years. "You look incredible," he said, standing to pull out my chair. "That dress is perfect on you." We talked for 2 hours about everything and nothing, his dreams of starting his own business, my frustrations with feeling stuck in a life that didn't fit me anymore, our shared love of old movies and good wine. When he reached across the table and took my hand, I didn't pull away. "I know this is complicated," he said, his thumb tracing circles on my palm, "but I can't stop thinking about you, Eustacia, about us." "There is no us," I said, but even as the words left my mouth, they felt like a lie. "There could be." When I got home that evening, Tom was helping Jamie with a puzzle while Lily practiced piano in the next room. It was such a picture of domestic tranquility that I almost felt bad about the secret I was carrying. "How was work?" Tom asked without looking up from the puzzle. "Fine," I said. "The usual." But as I went through the motions of our evening routine, all I could think about was the way Callum had looked at me, the way he'd made me feel alive and interesting and desired. Tom was a good man, a good father, but when was the last time he'd made me feel the way Callum did with just a glance? That night, as I was brushing my teeth, my phone buzzed with another message from Callum. This time, instead of deleting it immediately, I saved his number under a different name, Casey from accounting, and moved our conversation to a messaging app that I could hide. I told myself I wasn't doing anything wrong. We were just friends. But deep down, I knew I was lying to myself just as much as I was lying to Tom. Over the next few weeks, my relationship with Callum deepened from friendly flirtation to something much more intense. We started meeting regularly, coffee dates that turned into long lunches, text conversations that stretched late into the night, and stolen moments in empty conference rooms where our conversations became increasingly personal. "I feel like I can tell you anything," I confided to him one afternoon as we sat in a corner booth at our usual cafe. Tom and I used to talk like this, but somewhere along the way, we just stopped. "Maybe you outgrew him," Callum suggested, his green eyes serious. "It happens. People change, evolve. Sometimes they grow in different directions." The idea that I had outgrown Tom was both thrilling and terrifying. It suggested that my dissatisfaction wasn't a character flaw, but a natural progression, that I deserved more than what I was getting. "I never thought of it that way," I admitted. "You're an amazing woman, Eustacia. Smart, beautiful, funny. You deserve someone who sees that, who appreciates it." When he said things like that, looking at me with such intensity, it was easy to forget that I was married, that I had responsibilities and commitments that extended beyond my own happiness. The deception was getting more elaborate. I started telling Tom I was working late when I was actually meeting Callum. I joined a gym I never used as an excuse for evening absences. I even created fake work events to explain why I couldn't be reached during certain hours. "You're really dedicated to this new fitness routine," Tom commented one evening when I came home at 8:30, claiming to have been at a spin class. "I'm trying to take better care of myself," I said, which wasn't entirely a lie. Being with Callum made me feel more attractive, more confident. I was taking better care of my appearance, buying new clothes, getting my hair done more frequently. "That's great," Tom said, but there was something in his voice that made me look at him more carefully. "I just miss spending time with you." "We spend time together," I protested. "Do we? When was the last time we had a real conversation? Just the two of us?" I couldn't remember, which probably proved his point, but I wasn't ready to admit that. "We're talking right now." "Are we? Because it feels like you're somewhere else entirely." The accusation stung because it was true, but instead of feeling guilty, I felt angry. Why was it my responsibility to manage Tom's feelings? Why couldn't he see that I was trying to better myself, to grow as a person? "Maybe if you were more interesting to talk to, I wouldn't seem so distant," I snapped, immediately regretting the words but too proud to take them back. Tom's face went pale, and he was quiet for a long moment. "I see," he said finally. "I'll try to be more interesting." The hurt in his voice should have broken my heart, but all I felt was irritation. This was exactly the problem. Tom's tendency to make everything about him, to turn my legitimate feelings into something I needed to apologize for. That night, I texted Callum. "Had another fight with Tom. I don't know how much longer I can do this." His response came quickly. "You don't have to do anything you don't want to do. Life's too short to be unhappy." The next day at work, Callum suggested we meet for drinks after work instead of our usual coffee. "There's a wine bar downtown that I think you'd love," he said. "Very romantic atmosphere." The word romantic should have been a red flag, but instead, it sent a thrill through me. When was the last time Tom had taken me somewhere romantic? I called Tom to tell him I'd be late, another work event, I claimed, and met Callum at the wine bar. It was intimate and dimly lit, with small tables for two and soft jazz playing in the background. Definitely not the kind of place you'd go with a platonic friend. "This is beautiful," I said as the hostess led us to a corner table. "I wanted tonight to be special," Callum said, and the way he looked at me made my stomach flutter. We ordered a bottle of wine and talked for hours. Callum told me about his childhood, his dreams, his past relationships. I found myself sharing things I hadn't told anyone in years. My disappointment with how my life had turned out, my feeling that I was wasting away in suburbia, my fear that I was becoming invisible. "You could never be invisible," Callum said, reaching across the table to take my hand. "Not to me." When he leaned in to kiss me, I didn't pull away. It was soft and tentative at first, then deeper and more passionate. It had been so long since I'd felt desired, since someone had looked at me like I was the most important person in the world. "I should go," I said when we finally broke apart, but I made no move to leave. "Should you? Or do you think you should?" It was a good question. What did I actually want versus what I thought I was supposed to want? "I don't know anymore," I admitted. "That's okay. You don't have to have all the answers right now." When I finally got home that night, it was after 11. Tom was waiting up, sitting in the living room with a book in his lap, though I could tell he hadn't been reading. "How was your work thing?" he asked. "Fine," I said, avoiding his eyes. "I'm exhausted. I'm going to bed." "Eustacia, wait." His voice was gentle but firm. "We need to talk." "Can it wait until tomorrow? I really am tired." "When tomorrow? You leave early, come home late, and when you are here, you're on your phone or finding reasons to be in another room." He wasn't wrong, but his observation felt like an attack. "I'm not avoiding you, Tom. I'm just busy." "With what? Your mysterious work projects that you can never explain? Your new gym routine that doesn't seem to involve any actual exercise equipment?" My heart started racing. How much did he know? What's that supposed to mean? I called your gym today. They said you haven't been there in 2 weeks. The lie was so easily exposed that I felt stupid for using it. But instead of coming clean, I doubled down. Maybe they made a mistake, or maybe I've been using the other location. What other location, Eustacia? It's a small local gym with one building. I could feel the conversation spiraling out of control, but I couldn't seem to stop myself from making it worse. Why are you checking up on me? That's really controlling behavior, Tom. Controlling? I'm worried about my wife, who's been acting like a stranger for months. Maybe I'm not the one who's changed. Maybe you're just finally seeing who I really am. The words hung between us like a challenge. Tom stared at me for a long moment, and I could see him trying to process what I'd just said. And who are you really? He asked quietly. It was a fair question, but I didn't have a good answer. All I knew was that I felt more like myself when I was with Callum than I had in years. I'm someone who deserves to be happy, I said finally. And you're not happy, with me, with our family. The honest answer was no, I wasn't happy, but saying that out loud felt too cruel, too final. Instead, I said, I don't want to have this conversation right now. I went upstairs and took a long shower, letting the hot water wash away the guilt and confusion. When I came out, Tom was already in bed, lying on his side, facing away from me. I slipped under the covers and checked my phone one last time. Callum had sent a photo of the wine bar with the caption, "Already missing you." I smiled despite everything and typed back, "Me too." As I drifted off to sleep, I told myself that I deserved this happiness, this excitement, this feeling of being truly seen and appreciated. Tom was a good man, but maybe good wasn't enough anymore. Maybe I needed more. The breaking point came during a dinner party I'd organized for Tom's birthday. It seemed like the perfect opportunity to show everyone what a good wife I was, how well I could play the part when it mattered. I invited both our families and a few close friends. My mother Della, my sister Marnie, Tom's parents George and Ruth, and our neighbors, the Hendersons. I spent all day preparing Tom's favorite meal and decorating the dining room. To anyone watching, I looked like the perfect devoted wife. But my phone kept buzzing with messages from Callum, who was working late and sending me photos of his dinner, takeout Chinese eaten alone at his desk. "Wish you were here instead of playing house," one message read, and I found myself agreeing with him more than I cared to admit. When everyone arrived, I put on my best hostess smile and made sure everyone had drinks and appetizers. Tom looked genuinely happy for the first time in weeks, and I felt a pang of something, guilt, maybe, or regret. "This is wonderful, dear," said Ruth, Tom's mother, as she admired the table setting. "Tom is so lucky to have you." "We both are," said George, raising his beer in a toast. "To Tom and Eustacia, and many more years of happiness." Everyone raised their glasses, and I smiled and played along, but the words felt hollow. How many more years? The question haunted me as we sat down to eat. The conversation flowed easily at first. Tom was in good spirits, telling stories about work and asking everyone about their lives. He was actually quite charming when he made an effort, and I remembered why I'd fallen in love with him in the first place. But then my mother started talking about her neighbor's divorce, and somehow the conversation turned to marriage and commitment. "I just don't understand how people can throw away years of marriage over some silly midlife crisis," Della was saying. "Marriage is work. You can't just give up when things get difficult." "Some people are just selfish," added Ruth. "They think they deserve constant happiness instead of understanding that real love means sacrifice." I felt like they were talking directly to me, even though they had no way of knowing about Callum. The judgment in their voices made me defensive. "Maybe some people settle for less than they deserve," I said, my voice sharper than I'd intended. "What do you mean?" asked Marnie, my sister, looking concerned. "I mean, maybe some people get married young and then realize they want different things. That doesn't make them selfish." Tom was looking at me with a puzzled expression. Are we still talking about your mother's neighbor? I'm talking about people in general, I said, taking a large gulp of wine. People who feel trapped in lives that don't fit them anymore. The table had gone quiet, and I realized everyone was staring at me. I should have backtracked, made a joke, changed the subject. Instead, I kept talking. Like, some people are content with routine and predictability, but others need excitement, passion, something more than just this. I gestured vaguely around the table. This? Tom's voice was very quiet. What's wrong with this? I looked around the table at all the faces staring at me. Tom's hurt confusion, my mother's growing alarm, Ruth and George's obvious disapproval, Marnie's concern. I should have apologized, should have said I was just having a philosophical discussion. Instead, I laughed. It came out harsher than I'd intended, almost bitter. Nothing's wrong with it, Tom. It's perfectly fine, safe, predictable. The same conversations, the same routines, the same everything, year after year. Eustacia, Marnie said quietly, maybe you should... Should what? Pretend I'm happy? Pretend that this is enough? I was spiraling, I knew it, but I couldn't seem to stop. The wine, the stress of maintaining my double life, the pressure of pretending everything was fine, it all came pouring out. Some of us want more than just existing. Some of us want to feel alive, to feel desired, to feel like we matter. Tom's face had gone very pale. You don't feel like you matter? To me? To the kids? When was the last time you looked at me? Really looked at me? Like I was someone special? When was the last time you made me feel beautiful, or interesting, or like I was anything more than just the person who does your laundry and cooks your dinner? The silence that followed was deafening. I could hear the clock ticking on the mantel, the sound of cars passing outside, my own heart beating in my ears. I look at you every day, Tom said finally, his voice barely above a whisper. I tell you you're beautiful. You tell me I look nice. There's a difference. Ruth cleared her throat. Perhaps we should go. Give you two some privacy to work this out. No, stay, I said, feeling reckless and destructive. This is good. We should all be honest with each other. How many of you are actually happy in your marriages? Really, truly happy? Eustacia, stop, Della said, but there was uncertainty in her voice. I'm serious. George, Ruth, when was the last time you felt passionate about each other? When was the last time you felt that flutter of excitement when your spouse walked into a room? We've been married 42 years, George said stiffly. Passion isn't everything. Isn't it? Then what's the point? Why commit your entire life to someone if you don't feel anything special for them? Because love is more than just passion, Ruth said. It's commitment, loyalty, building a life together. That sounds like a business partnership, not a marriage. Tom stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. Excuse me, he said, and walked out of the room. The silence that followed was even more uncomfortable than before. I could see the judgment in everyone's faces, the disapproval and concern and outright shock. What has gotten into you? Marnie asked. That was cruel, Eustacia. I was being honest. You were being horrible. Tom loves you. Anyone can see that. Love isn't enough, I said, and even as I said it, I knew I was crossing a line I couldn't uncross. My phone buzzed with a text, and without thinking, I glanced at it. Callum had sent a photo of himself at his desk with the caption, "Thinking of you." The small smile that crossed my face must have been visible, because Marnie's eyes narrowed. Who's texting you? No one. Work stuff. But I could see the suspicion in her eyes, and I realized I'd made a mistake, a big one. The rest of the evening was a disaster. Tom didn't come back to the table, and eventually, everyone made awkward excuses and left early. I found Tom in our bedroom, sitting on the edge of the bed with his head in his hands. I'm sorry, I said, though I wasn't sure I meant it. I had too much wine. Is that what this is about? Too much wine? I sat down next to him, close enough to touch but not quite touching. I don't know what it's about. I just feel lost, I guess. Lost how? What can I do to help? The genuine concern in his voice made me feel worse somehow. He was trying so hard to fix something that I wasn't sure could be fixed. "I don't think you can do anything," I said honestly. "I think this is something I have to figure out on my own." Tom was quiet for a long time. Finally, he said, "Are you having an affair?" The question hit me like a physical blow. I should have denied it immediately, should have been outraged at the suggestion. Instead, I hesitated just long enough for him to see the truth in my face. "Oh God," he said, standing up quickly. "Oh God, you are." "Tom, it's not what you think." "What is it then? What should I think?" I didn't have a good answer. What could I say? That I'd fallen for someone who made me feel alive again? That I deserved to be happy? That our marriage had been over for months, even if he hadn't realized it? "I need some air," Tom said, grabbing his jacket. "Don't wait up." He left, and I was alone with the wreckage of the evening, the accusatory silence of our house, and the growing realization that there might be no going back from this. The weeks following Tom's birthday dinner were tense and strange. Tom didn't ask me directly about the affair again, but I could feel him watching me, analyzing my every move and word. He started coming home at unexpected times, checking my phone when he thought I wasn't looking, and asking detailed questions about my whereabouts. I told myself he was being paranoid and controlling, but deep down, I knew he was just trying to save our marriage. The problem was, I wasn't sure I wanted it saved. My relationship with Callum had intensified since that disastrous dinner. The near discovery had made everything feel more urgent, more real. We started meeting more frequently, and our conversations turned increasingly toward the future. "You can't stay in a marriage that makes you miserable," Callum said one afternoon as we sat in his car in an empty parking lot. We'd started meeting in more discreet locations since Tom had become suspicious. "It's not that simple. There are the kids to think about, the house, everything we've built together." "But what about what you want? What about your happiness?" It was a seductive argument. Why shouldn't my happiness matter? Why should I sacrifice my entire life for other people's expectations? "I keep thinking about what you said," I told him, "about outgrowing Tom. I think you're right. We're just different people now." Callum reached over and took my hand. "You deserve someone who appreciates you, who sees how amazing you are." "Like you do?" "Exactly like I do." When he kissed me this time, it wasn't tentative or questioning. It was confident, possessive, full of promise. I kissed him back with all the passion and longing I'd been suppressing for months. "I love you," he said against my lips, and my heart nearly stopped. "I love you too," I whispered back, and meant it. That night, I lay in bed next to Tom, who was pretending to sleep, and made a decision. I was going to leave him. I was going to choose happiness over security, passion over comfort. I was going to choose Callum. The next few days passed in a blur of secret planning. I researched divorce lawyers, looked at apartment listings, and tried to figure out how to tell the kids. Callum was supportive and encouraging, talking about the life we could build together, the places we could travel, the freedom we'd have. "I can't wait to wake up next to you every morning," he said during one of our lunch meetings. "To not have to hide how I feel about you." "Soon," I promised. "I just need to figure out the logistics." But then something happened that changed everything. I'd been feeling nauseous for a few days, tired in a way that felt different from normal stress exhaustion. At first, I thought I was just overwhelmed by everything that was happening. But when I missed my period, a terrible suspicion began to grow. I bought a pregnancy test during my lunch break, took it in the bathroom at work, and stared at the 2 pink lines that confirmed my worst fears. I was pregnant. The timing couldn't have been worse. Tom and I hadn't been intimate in weeks, but Callum and I had been careless during our last few encounters. There was no question who the father was. I sat in that bathroom stall for 20 minutes, trying to process what this meant. A baby would complicate everything. The divorce, custody arrangements, my future with Callum. But maybe it would also make everything clearer. Maybe this was the push I needed to finally leave Tom and start fresh. That evening, I called Callum and asked him to meet me at our usual cafe. I was nervous but also excited. This wasn't how I'd planned to tell him about my feelings, but maybe it was better this way. More honest. "You look serious," he said when I sat down across from him. "Everything okay?" "I have something to tell you," I began, then took a deep breath. "I'm pregnant." The change in his expression was immediate and devastating. The warm smile disappeared, replaced by something that looked like panic. "Are you sure?" "I took 3 tests. I'm sure." He was quiet for a long moment, staring down at his coffee cup. "Whose is it?" The question hurt more than I'd expected. "Yours. Tom and I haven't. It's been weeks." "Fuck." He ran his hands through his hair. "Fuck, Eustacia, this is... I know it's not ideal timing, but maybe it's a sign. Maybe this is the universe telling us we're meant to be together." He looked at me like I'd lost my mind. "A sign? This is a disaster." "It doesn't have to be. I was already planning to leave Tom. This just makes it more urgent." "You can't have this baby." The words hit me like a slap. "What?" "You can't have it. You're married to someone else. This would destroy everything." "Everything? Or just your comfortable situation where you get all the benefits of a relationship without any of the responsibilities?" "That's not fair. You know how I feel about you." "Do I? Because right now it seems like you only feel that way when it's convenient for you." Callum was quiet for a long moment, and I could see him thinking, calculating, trying to find a way out of this mess. "Look," he said finally, "maybe we should take a step back. Think about this rationally." "Take a step back? I just told you I'm carrying your child." "Allegedly carrying my child. You said yourself you and Tom haven't been intimate in weeks, not months. Are you absolutely certain about the timing?" The doubt in his voice was like poison. This wasn't how this conversation was supposed to go. He was supposed to be excited, or at least supportive. He was supposed to want to build a life with me. "I'm certain," I said coldly. Okay, let's say it's mine. What do you want me to do about it?" "I want you to be happy about it. I want you to want this baby, and me, and the life we talked about building together." I never talked about building a life with someone else's wife and her children. That's not what this was about. Then what was this about? What have we been doing for the past 3 months? He looked uncomfortable, guilty. "We were having fun, enjoying each other's company. I never promised you anything more than that." The betrayal was complete and devastating. All those conversations about love, about my deserving better, about the future we could have together. None of it had been real, at least not for him. "I see," I said, standing up. "I guess I misunderstood." "Eustacia, wait, don't go like this. We can figure something out." But I was already walking away, my heart breaking, and my mind reeling. I'd destroyed my marriage for a man who saw me as nothing more than a fun distraction. I'd humiliated Tom, confused my children, and alienated my family for someone who disappeared the moment things got complicated. When I got home that night, Tom was in the kitchen helping Lily with her homework while Jamie coloured at the table. It was such a normal, peaceful scene that I almost started crying. "How was work?" Tom asked without looking up. "Fine," I managed. But nothing was fine. I was pregnant with another man's child. My marriage was falling apart, and the man I thought I loved had just made it clear that I meant nothing to him. I went upstairs and sat on the edge of our bed, staring at my phone. I had 17 unread messages from Callum, each one more desperate than the last, but I couldn't bring myself to read them. Instead, I looked around the bedroom I'd shared with Tom for 8 years, at the photos on the dresser of our wedding day and family vacations, at the book on his nightstand, and the reading glasses he'd left on top of it. What had I done? Tom's behavior changed dramatically over the next few days. Instead of the hurt, confused man who'd been trying to save our marriage, he became someone I barely recognized, calm, methodical, almost businesslike in his interactions with me. "We need to talk," he said on Thursday evening after the kids were in bed. I'd been dreading this conversation, but I also knew it was inevitable. "Okay." He gestured for me to sit down at the kitchen table, then sat across from me with a manila folder in his hands. "I've been doing some thinking since my birthday dinner," he began, his voice eerily calm. "About what you said, about feeling trapped and wanting more excitement in your life." "Tom, I was drinking that night. I said things I didn't mean." "Did you? Because I've been paying attention since then, and I think you meant every word." He opened the folder and pulled out a stack of papers. "I hired a private investigator." My blood ran cold. "You what?" "I hired someone to follow you, to find out what's been making you so unhappy with our boring, predictable life." He slid the first photo across the table. It was me and Callum at the wine bar, leaning across the table toward each other, obviously intimate. "This was taken 3 weeks ago," Tom said conversationally, "the same night you told me you were working late on a project." The next photo showed us kissing in his car, then another of us walking into a hotel together, something that had happened only once, but looked damning in the stark black and white photograph. "Tom, I can explain." "Can you? Because I'd love to hear the explanation for this." He pulled out printed copies of text messages. Somehow, he'd gotten access to my phone records and had the content of dozens of messages between Callum and me. "I can't wait to leave him and start our new life together," he read aloud. "Tom will never understand what we have." I've never felt this way about anyone before. Each message he read felt like a knife twisting in my chest. Seeing our private conversations laid out like evidence in a criminal case made them seem sordid and cruel in a way I'd never intended. "I can see why you were bored with me," Tom continued. "I never told you that you deserved better or that you were too good for your current life. I just tried to love you and support you and build a stable home for our children." "Tom, please." "I'm not finished." His voice was still calm, but there was steel underneath it. "I also had an interesting conversation with your friend Callum." My heart stopped. "What?" "I called him yesterday, introduced myself as your husband. We had a very enlightening chat. I felt like I was going to be sick. What did you say to him?" "I told him that I knew about the affair, and that I assumed he'd want to discuss how to handle the divorce and custody arrangements since you'd be moving in with him." "And?" He seemed very surprised to hear that. Said he had no idea you were planning to leave me for him. In fact, he seemed to think your relationship was much more casual than you did. The humiliation was complete. Not only had Tom discovered my affair, but he'd also uncovered the fact that Callum had never been as serious about me as I'd thought. He also seemed very concerned when I mentioned that you might be pregnant. I couldn't speak. I could barely breathe. "Are you pregnant, Eustacia?" There was no point in lying anymore. "Yes." "Is it mine?" The question I'd been dreading, the one that would determine the rest of all our lives. "No." Tom was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was barely above a whisper. "How long?" "How long what?" "How long have you been lying to me? How long have you been making me feel like I was crazy for thinking something was wrong? How long have you been planning to destroy our family?" I wanted to tell him that I'd never planned for any of this to happen, that I'd just been trying to find some happiness, that I'd never meant to hurt him. But all of that sounded pathetic and selfish, even to me. "I'm sorry," I said instead. "Are you? Or are you just sorry you got caught?" It was a fair question, and I wasn't sure I knew the answer. Tom closed the folder and leaned back in his chair. "I've already filed for divorce, and I'm seeking full custody of Lily and Jamie." "You can't do that. They're my children too." "You're pregnant with another man's child while married to me. You've been lying and manipulating and putting our family at risk for months. What judge is going to think you're a stable influence on 2 young children?" The reality of what I'd done, what I'd lost, was finally hitting me. "Tom, please. We can work this out. We can go to counseling, figure out how to move forward." "Move forward? You're carrying another man's baby. How exactly do you propose we move forward from that? I didn't have an answer. In all my fantasies about leaving Tom for Callum, I'd never really thought through the practical realities. I'd been living in a dream world where everything would work out perfectly, where I could have my happiness without consequences. I'll fight you on the custody, I said, trying to sound stronger than I felt. With what money? I've already frozen our joint accounts, and I've spoken to a lawyer about having you removed from the house. This is my house too. Actually, it's not. It's in my name only. We bought it before we were married, remember? You insisted we didn't need to add you to the deed because we trusted each other. The irony was devastating. My own words, my own trust in our relationship were now being used against me. Where am I supposed to go? I assume you'll figure something out. You're very good at making plans behind people's backs. That night, I called Callum 17 times. He didn't answer once. I sent him dozens of texts, explaining about Tom's discovery, begging him to call me back, asking him to help me figure out what to do next. Finally, at 2 a.m, he responded, "I think we should take a break from talking. This situation is too complicated for me right now." A break. The man whose child I was carrying wanted to take a break. I was alone, pregnant, facing divorce and a custody battle, and the man I'd destroyed my life for wanted nothing to do with me. As I sat in the dark in what used to be my bedroom, listening to Tom's steady breathing beside me, I realized that I'd made the biggest mistake of my life. And unlike the small lies and deceptions that had gotten me here, this was a mistake I couldn't take back. The next few months were the worst of my life. Tom followed through on every threat he'd made, and his lawyer was ruthlessly efficient. Within 2 weeks, I was served with divorce papers and an order to vacate the house. Tom was granted temporary full custody of Lily and Jamie, with me getting supervised visitation twice a week. The humiliation was complete and public. Word of the affair and pregnancy spread quickly through our social circle, our neighborhood, even our workplaces. I became the cautionary tale that other wives whispered about, the woman who threw away her family for a man who didn't even want her. My mother, Della, tried to be supportive at first. "Tom is being vindictive," she said when I moved into her spare bedroom. "He's trying to punish you for being human, for making a mistake." But even her support wavered when the full details came out, when she learned about the pregnancy, about Callum's rejection, about the extent of my lies and manipulation. Her disappointment was palpable. "I don't understand how you could do this," she said one evening, as we sat in her living room. "Tom is a good man. He loved you, provided for you, gave you a beautiful family. How could you throw that away?" I wasn't happy, I said, the same justification I'd been using for months. "Happiness isn't everything, Eustacia. Sometimes being an adult means choosing responsibility over happiness." My sister Marnie was even less sympathetic. "You've destroyed those children's lives," she told me bluntly. "Lily keeps asking me why Mommy doesn't live with them anymore, and I don't know what to tell her. Tell her that Mommy made some mistakes but still loves her very much." "Do you? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you loved yourself more than anyone else in your family." The words stung because they were true. In my pursuit of my own happiness, my own fulfillment, I'd lost sight of everyone else's needs and feelings. Callum never called me back. I heard through workplace gossip that he'd requested a transfer to another department, then eventually to another office entirely. He wanted nothing to do with me or the pregnancy, and made that abundantly clear through his lawyer when I tried to pursue child support. "My client disputes paternity," the lawyer informed me coldly. "If you wish to pursue this matter, he's prepared to demand a DNA test and fight any claims in court." The message was clear. I was on my own. The divorce proceedings were swift and brutal. Tom's evidence was overwhelming, and my behavior during the marriage was impossible to defend. I was granted minimal visitation with Lily and Jamie, no alimony, and no claim to any of our shared assets. The court finds that the defendant's actions demonstrate a pattern of deception and disregard for the welfare of the family unit, the judge said when rendering his decision. While the court does not make moral judgments, it must consider the stability and best interests of the minor children. I lost everything: the house, most of my belongings, my children, my reputation, my friends, all of it gone because I thought I deserved more than what I had. The final blow came 6 months after the divorce was finalized. I was living in a small apartment across town, working a new job because my old workplace had become too uncomfortable, struggling to make ends meet on a single income while dealing with the expenses of a new baby. I'd given birth to a daughter I named Emma, and she was beautiful despite the circumstances of her conception. But being a single mother was harder than I'd ever imagined, especially when the father wanted nothing to do with either of us. I was coming home from the grocery store one evening when I saw Tom's car in the parking lot of the apartment complex. My heart leaped. Maybe he wanted to reconcile. Maybe he'd realized that our family belonged together despite everything that had happened. But when I approached the car, I saw that he wasn't alone. There was a woman in the passenger seat, attractive, blonde, probably in her early 30s. She was laughing at something he'd said, and the way she looked at him was achingly familiar. It was the way I used to look at him, before I'd convinced myself that what we had wasn't enough. Tom saw me watching and got out of the car. "Eustacia, how are you?" "I'm fine," I lied. "Who's your friend?" "This is Sarah. She's a teacher at the kids' school. We've been seeing each other for a few months." The woman, Sarah, waved politely but stayed in the car. She looked kind, the sort of person who would be genuinely good with children, who would appreciate the stability and security that Tom offered. "The kids like her," Tom continued. "She's been very patient with them, helping them adjust to everything that's happened." "That's nice," I managed. "I wanted to let you know that we're getting serious. I didn't want you to hear it from Lily or Jamie first." "Are you going to marry her?" Tom was quiet for a moment. "Probably, eventually. She makes me happy and she's good for the kids. They need stability in their lives." The irony was devastating. Tom had found exactly what I'd been looking for: someone who appreciated him, who made him feel valued and loved, who brought excitement and joy into his life. The difference was, he'd found it after I'd left, not while we were still married. "I should go," I said. "Emma needs to be fed." "How is she, the baby?" "She's fine, growing fast." Tom nodded. "If you ever need anything for her, for yourself, just let me know. Despite everything, I don't want you to struggle." The kindness in his offer made me want to cry. Even after everything I'd done to him, he was still trying to take care of me. He was still the same good, decent man I'd married, the same man I'd convinced myself wasn't enough. "Thank you," I whispered. As I watched him drive away with his new girlfriend, I realized that I'd had everything I'd been looking for all along. Tom had loved me, appreciated me, wanted to build a life with me. The problem wasn't that he didn't see me as special. It was that I'd stopped seeing myself that way. I'd thrown away a good marriage, a loving husband, and a stable family because I'd been seduced by the idea that I deserved more excitement, more passion, more attention. But what I'd really deserved was to appreciate what I had, to work on our problems together, instead of looking for solutions in someone else's arms. Now, Tom was happy with someone who valued him. My children had a stepmother who put their needs first, and I was alone with the consequences of my choices. As I climbed the stairs to my small apartment, carrying my groceries and my baby, I realized that this was my life now. Not the glamorous fresh start I'd imagined with Callum, not the passionate romance I'd thought I deserved, but the reality of being a single mother who'd lost everything that mattered in pursuit of a fantasy. I'd followed my heart, just like I'd told myself I should, but my heart had led me straight into disaster, and there was no going back to the life I'd carelessly thrown away. The courier had delivered those divorce papers 8 months ago, but I was still living with the consequences every single day. I'd gotten exactly what I'd asked for: freedom from my boring, predictable life with Tom. I just hadn't realized how much I'd miss it once it was gone.